Thanks, Jim, and thanks, Fishamble, for inviting me here today. And thanks especially to Chandrika for pressing my buttons so I don't have to be ambidextrous. When I flip a page, I'm on to the next screen. We have a great gathering here, and I'm aware we have a very mixed crowd. Some colleagues I know very well, some colleagues will be very familiar with the work of the Trust. However, I know there's some people that know nothing about the Trust, so if you bear with me, I'm going to begin by talking about the Trust and then move on to speak more broadly about what we have encountered with our relationship with debut playwrights. Okay, Stewart Parker Trust, putting the playwright at the centre. Established in 1989 in honour of the late Belfast playwright Stewart Parker, the Stewart Parker Trust promotes, supports and develops new writers for theatre in Ireland, north and south. Born in Belfast in 1941, Stewart Parker was a poet, a prose writer, a music critic, a prolific writer for radio, and one of Ireland's most distinctive and original playwrights. Fintan O'Toole selected his play Pentecost for inclusion in Modern Ireland in 100 Artworks, and I love this quote, really catches Stuart. Parker's ambition was to create a theatre at once serious in its reflections on the political crisis and exuberantly theatrical. So that combination really catches him. You'll see a list of his most well-known plays there, including Spoke Song, Northern Star, and Pentecost. For those who want to read more about Stuart's work, there are two collections of his plays published by Methuen that are available. I've got some pictures for you, just to give you a sense of Stuart's work from original productions, but also from recent ones. So you'll see productions by the Lyric Theatre, Field Day Theatre Company, Rough Magic. In the centre is Stephen Ray, a very close friend of Stuart's in the... What? Oh! Oh, I'm talking about photographs. Okay, grand, okay. Okay. Well, will I hold it up? Grand. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll. Are we back? Oh, wonderful. Sorry. Well, there you go. There's the lovely pictures. In the centre is Stephen Ray, and this is a really interesting one down in the corner. You'll see. Does anybody recognise this man here? That is actually John Lithgow in the Broadway production of Spoke Song, which ran for over 90 performances in 1979. And in the top left and the bottom right is the inimitable Eleanor Methven, who has been in many of Stuart's plays. And this is the last picture of Stuart's work for now, but there he is this is the Field Day Production Company production of Pentecost in 1987, and you can see Stuart sitting in the front, in the right-hand corner, and in the left is the late Brian Friel. Following Stuart's untimely death from cancer at the age of 47, his great friend John Fairley established the Trust to honour him and to perpetuate his legacy in the best possible way by nurturing a new generation of talented, innovative literary playwrights. The founding trustees were friends and colleagues of Stuart, and they included Leslie Bruce, Alexandra Cann, Robert Cooper, John Fairley, Brian Friel, Seamus Heaney, Jennifer Johnston, Frank McGuinness, Lynn Parker, and Lynn is also a niece of Stuart, and Stephen Ray. The very first recipient of the Stewart Parker Trust Award was Sebastian Barry in 1988. Today, the Trust comprises trustees chaired by John Fairley, an advisory panel chaired by Willie White, and including people like Deirdre Kinahan, a director and a treasurer. And you'll see most of our trustees are there on the right-hand side. We're missing an image for Leslie Bruce. The Trust is funded by the Arts Council and partners with BBC Northern Ireland and Irish Theatre Institute to deliver its programme. Stewart Parker's Trust's key activities include holding annual awards to offer bursaries, opportunities and a platform to emerging playwrights, hosting a week-long residential playwrights workshop at Tyrone Guthrie Centre, supporting one-to-one mentorship, and hosting playwright-focused events, seminars and discussions. The Stewart Parker Trust Awards are probably the best known of our activity. We're an all-Ireland body, and we present 3 annual awards in collaboration with our partners in BBC Northern Ireland: the Stewart Parker Trust New Playwrights Bursary, the BBC Northern Ireland Radio Drama Award, and the BBC Northern Ireland Irish Language Award. And the annual awards alternate between Dublin and Belfast. Here is a list of just the winners of the New Playwright Bursary. I'm happy to say it would take the entirety of my 15 minutes to list all the winning writers of all 3 awards and the 130 writers who have taken part in the workshop, but take it that there's a substantial body of writers there. This may seem a little bit technical, but we get asked this all the time, and actually it's very rare that we get an opportunity to articulate in public, so I'm going to run through it quite briefly. We work very, very closely with Irish Theatre Institute to discern what plays are eligible each year, and it's quite a detailed process. I'm delighted to say that our three closest colleagues in Irish Theatre Institute are the three here today, so Catherine, Siobhan and Claire, who work very, very closely with us. We are looking at debut playwrights. We cannot support all playwrights, so we've focused specifically on that. So we look for the first professionally produced play by a playwright based in Ireland, which runs for a duration of 50 minutes or more, was presented for 2 or more performances, is written by a single author, so not a devised work or a play of dual authorship. Again, this is all about putting the playwright at the centre. It may seem like we're excluding work, but we have to try and focus on the writer beneath the piece. Was produced in Ireland North and South. We're unable to consider Irish plays produced by Irish writers internationally, but if that play is a subsequent production, we may be able to include it. Is an original work, not a translation, an adaptation, or a version of an existing text. And again, this rule can be bent. If you happen to adapt your own work, so for example with Pat McCabe and Frank Pigg Says Hello, his adaptation of The Butcher Boy, that would be, but if you're adapting somebody else's literary work, then we don't include it. And is a player with 1 or more characters, i.e. not a stage memoir, a stand-up piece, or a piece that's better described as factual or a lecture. So, how do plays get selected for the shortlist? Each year, a panel of readers read all the plays that meet the criteria. In recent years, this has ranged from 18 to 38 scripts. This readers' panel comprises of members of the Trust's advisory panel and trustees, representatives from Irish Theatre Institute, and every year we have 2 independent playwrights with us. We work from the printed text only. This is important to stress, not the productions or critical responses to the production. So we really are there alone with the writer, with the playwright. And we do love to see work. I go and see work, and my colleagues go and see work, and our ITI team go and see everything pretty much. But it is very, very important to stress that, because it wouldn't be fair to base something. You can get very bedazzled by a production and actually lose sight of the playwright within it. So that's where our focus is. We announce a shortlist of 3 to 6 plays every year in advance of the awards. What are we looking for in a play? We're very aware that many of the scripts we read every year have had very little support in terms of dramaturgy. So the more appropriate question is, what are we looking for in a playwright? We're looking for a voice. We're looking for originality. Is the play innovative with plot or language or form? We're looking for theatricality, dramatic energy, and instinct for theatre. We favour work that's been very definitely, in some cases defiantly, written for the stage. Has the writer something significant or pertinent to say? Ambition, what would the writer's next play look like? Now, I know that seems like a really speculative thing to ask, but we do ask it in the room as part of our lengthy process. So, in effect, we're looking for writers of promise, not perfect plays. So that's where we're at. What are we finding? A snapshot of the 2017 long list shows the following. Now, you had wonderful stats from ITI earlier. This is really just to give you an idea of what we find when we look for debut playwrights. So there were 21 debut plays. 8 were written by men, 13 were written by women. 9 monologues, 5 duologues, and only 7 of the plays had 3 or more characters. So that's 33%. So that's an interesting figure. Again, just from a snapshot of this year, we figure that 80% of the plays had no significant funding or a relationship with an established production company. So that in itself is interesting. And also, even when you look at our list of winners, you'll find that the majority of the writers that we encounter now have parallel roles in theatre. So they might be producers or directors, or actually most commonly they might be actors, and this is a really particular challenge to their playwriting craft. We've had many instances where a playwright would have been offered a week at Anna McCarrick, fully funded by the Trust, and has had to withdraw because of acting commitments. So this juggling is a challenge for all of us, actually, as a sector. How do we support those writers? This is a quote by Stuart. "I've always loved theatricality. Playwrights write for themselves in that sense. You write the sorts of plays you've always wanted to see." So how do we support the writers that we encounter in their debut work? How do we support the writers to make that second play, to write that type of play? How do we, is the writer best off developing their craft outside of the company model? You know, if we support a writer by providing dramaturgy, say, where is that play going to go? Who's going to produce that work? If they write ambitious plays with our supported workshops at one-to-one, who will produce them? And is the big play a thing of the past? Are we actually trying to lever in something that is perhaps an anachronism? You know, has theatre moved significantly on that the big play is no longer something that we should be striving for or seeking to support? That's a question I'm sure will come up in the afternoon. From our workshop, we meet the writers every year at the workshop, and we sit down and talk with them, and we meet writers all the time, and we talk with our colleagues in ITI. What does a playwright need? We are going to work with Tanya Dean, I'm happy to say, and Tanya is here on a conference as part of Dublin Theatre Festival this year. It'll be the third week of the festival, and it will focus very much on this, on what works for a playwright. But some of the things that playwrights have said to us that they need are obvious. They need funding, they need commissions, they need time, but they also need deadlines. They need dramaturgy, they need mentorship, they need readings, workshops, masterclasses, critical engagement. That's something that's actually particularly hard for a writer to get now. Productions, more productions, better productions, remounts of earlier work, to be part of the production process, and in some cases to be left out of the production process in order to write. So it's very diverse. And what we're hoping to do with our own conference later in the year is to tease out those things, and also we're going to do substantial research with our former winners to see where that is at. I suppose I'm talking about what a playwright needs, but I would like to finish by saying we need our playwrights. Theatre Artists has been at the forefront of the current Repeal the 8th campaign. I can see there's a plethora of badges and T-shirts. Writers like Emmett Kerwin, Tara Flynn, Noelle Brown, Grace Dias, Veronica Dias, Rosaline McDonough, Eve O'Connor. These writers have I suppose, been hugely significant in writing important works for the stage that capture the social justice issues of our time. And then you move on to looking at writers like Tom Murphy and Marina Carr and Frank McGuinness and writers who would have, I suppose, presented Irish narratives in a really vivid and visceral way internationally. So something that we must do is encourage writers at all stages of the development. This is sort of a misnomer of this mid-career playwright. There is no such thing really as a mid-career playwright. There's no platform that you get on that makes everything easy. It is always a challenge for writers. So I suppose what would be wonderful to come from today and also from our work in October is to find what supports really do work and support these writers. Okay, thank you.